Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. My name is Margaret Lawson, and I'm 68 years old. All my life, I've been a teacher in a small suburban public school, where the walls smell of chalk and children sometimes come home hungry but with hearts full of dreams. I've spent my life educating, encouraging, and comforting generations of students. I was proud of my job. Proud to have been, for some, the only person who believed in them. I am also a widow. It has been 12 years since my husband, William, passed away in his sleep, peacefully, as he had lived. He was my rock, my confidant, my partner in crime. We had been married for 40 years. Between us, we had built a modest but solid home. 2 children, David, the eldest, brilliant but often distant, and Emily, sweet, warm, spontaneous. Our greatest project was our country house. A small white wooden building with green shutters, nestled among the century-old trees of Greenwillow Lake. It wasn't a luxury villa, far from it. It didn't have running water at first, nor central heating. But it was our dream, built through savings, patience, and immense love. I can still see William painting the railings, the children running barefoot in the long grass, the picnic baskets placed on a checkered blanket. The scent of the pines, the birds singing in the morning, the wooden boat that my husband maintained with almost religious care. It was a sanctuary, a place outside of time, where one could breathe when the world became too hard. After William died, this house took on a new meaning. It was no longer just a place of memories, it was a living link to him. When I spent my summers there, alone on the terrace with a book on my knees and the wind in the trees, I felt as if he were there, sitting beside me, silent and caring. But the years passed. My body began to betray my will. My hands ached, my knees reminded me of my age with every step, and maintaining the property became a struggle. Mowing the lawn, repairing the fence, maintaining the wood stove. It was becoming too much. That's when I thought of David. He had always said he loved this house, that he wanted to bring his children here when he had any. He talked about preserving the family legacy. I believed him. Naively, perhaps, but I wanted to trust my son. So, after several consultations with my notary, I made a decision. I legally transferred the usufruct of the house to him. It was a way of giving him responsibility, of passing the torch to him, while reserving the right to stay there every summer until my death. I had insisted on this point. I even remember telling him, with tears in my eyes, "David, this house, it's all I have left of your father. I just want to spend my summers here, in peace. The rest, I'll leave to you. But promise me you'll never deprive me of it." He nodded, without even looking up from his phone. "Don't worry, Mom. I promise." I wanted to believe it. He was my son, after all. But promises, I've learned the hard way, are only good until they become inconvenient. And the words, "I promise," can melt faster than a snowflake on hot asphalt when spoken without heart. And I was going to learn it in the most painful way. One spring morning, the kind of morning when birds sing with contagious enthusiasm and the sun warms the still-closed shutters, my phone vibrated. It was Emily, my daughter. His voice was nervous, almost embarrassed. "Mom, did you know about David and Courtney?" "Know what?" "They threw a party at the lake house. A big party. People on Instagram are talking about it. And they told everyone they were moving there permanently." I stood there frozen, the receiver pressed to my ear like an anvil. "Which lake house, Emily?" "Yours, Mom. Greenwillow's house." For a few seconds, my mind went blank, as if the world had shifted into a distorted version of itself. I thought it was a bad joke. A mistake. A mix-up. But my daughter never joked about such things. 3 days later, I drove up to Greenwillow with Emily. She had insisted on coming with me, worried about my reaction. The car ride, usually so calming with its familiar forests and valleys, seemed endless this time. I gripped the steering wheel so tightly that my fingers trembled. When we arrived at the bend in the small path leading to the property, I had a visual shock. The wooden fence William had built with his own hands was gone. In its place was a black, imposing, cold electric gate. On the freshly laid stone pillars, modern LED spotlights blinked like surveillance cameras. The gravel path had been paved. And there, in the garden where my wild roses once grew, sat a steaming hot tub, framed by solar lanterns and designer beanbags. Lyrics from a commercial pop song drifted from speakers hidden in the trees. And just outside the porch, a polished wooden sign proudly read, "Welcome to the Hamiltons." The Hamilton. I slowly got out of the car, each step heavier than the last. Emily held out her hand. I didn't take it. I didn't even have to knock. The door opened before I reached the steps. And then she appeared. Courtney. Courtney Hamilton now. Dressed in a white silk dress, too light for the season, a glass of sparkling wine in hand. She was made up as if for a photo shoot, her hair tied back in a sophisticated bun. Her smile was polite but empty. "Oh. Hello, Margaret," she said, surprised but not embarrassed. "You came, for what, exactly?" I looked her straight in the eyes. "To see my house," I replied calmly, my voice firmer than I would have thought myself capable of. She raised an eyebrow, looking vaguely amused, as if I'd just said something quaint. "Well, David told me it was now our house." She took a sip of wine and added, with a smile tinged with false compassion. "He said you don't really need it anymore. You understand, right? At your age." At my age. These 3 words hit my heart like a slap. She didn't say it cruelly. No. She said it as one would speak to a slightly senile old lady who no longer quite understands how the world works. With that gentle, unbearable condescension one reserves for furniture one wants to throw away. I didn't answer anything. I simply turned around, straight, dignified, chin raised. I walked up the paved driveway without a word. Emily ran after me, furious. "Mom, do you want to say something? I can go talk to him." "Non," I whispered, "that it's not worth it." Because inside me, something had just broken. But something else had also just been born. It wasn't sadness. Not anger either. It was a calm. A cold, but lucid emptiness. A realization. They had erased me. Erased me from my own history. And now they would have to live with the consequences. The weeks following my visit to Greenwillow were long. Heavy with silence. Not a call. Not a word of apology. Nothing. I was waiting for a gesture. Even a timid one. Even a clumsy one. But he never came. And then, one morning, while I was having my coffee on the small balcony of my apartment in the city, I heard thieting from my phone. A message from David. The first, and only. "Mom, I thought you'd understand. Courtney has always dreamed of a place like this. And you always said this house was for us. You should be happy for us." I read it again. Twice. 3 times. And with each reading, a different sensation ran through me, first disbelief. Then rage. And finally, a kind of icy grief, as if I were reading a disguised farewell. You should be happy for us. Happy? Happy to have been betrayed? Happy that the spot where I buried my husband's ashes under a young oak tree is now surrounded by LED string lights and cocktails served to strangers in spa bathrobes? Happy to be erased from a story I built? But what David didn't know, or perhaps chose not to see, was that I wasn't naive. I may have had gray hair, chronic pain, and a soft voice, but I also had a sharp memory and an eye for detail. And most importantly, I had been a schoolteacher for 40 years. Nothing escaped me. When I transferred the usufruct of the house to David, I took care to protect myself. My notary, Mr. Delaney, advised me to include a very specific clause in the deed. Any transformation of the property into a primary residence or commercial use without the express agreement of the bare owner will result in the cancellation of the donation and the complete restitution of the property. At the time, I thought this kind of clause was superfluous. But I signed it anyway, just to be on the safe side. And then one night, while I was having dinner alone, I opened Instagram. I'm not very tech-savvy, but Emily had taught me how to navigate it a little, to keep an eye on what young people are posting, she said, laughing. I came across Courtney Hamilton's public profile. Always so well-dressed. Always smiling in front of warm filters. And there, a 2-minute video, shot in my living room, transformed into a yoga studio. Welcome to our new dream home on Greenwillow Lake. This is where David and I have decided to settle down full-time. It's peaceful, rejuvenating. And we're even thinking of launching some businesses there soon. Wellness retreats, with massages, organic nutrition and sunrise yoga. Follow us for more details. It showed the bedrooms, the terrace, and even William's small boat repainted in off-white, renamed the Serenity. The name he sometimes called me secretly, in the evening, when he wanted to make me smile. Seeing this, something inside me closed. Like a 3-turn lock. It was no longer pain. It was no longer doubt. It was a certainty. They had crossed the line. They hadn't crossed it by mistake. They had trampled it casually. And I remained the bare owner. I still had the power. And that clause, that simple paragraph forgotten at the bottom of a notarial deed, would become my silent response to their betrayal. A whole month had passed since that video, since that message from David, since the painful echo of that betrayal resonated in my mind. I'd had time to calm down, but I hadn't forgotten. Not Courtney's tone, not the polite contempt, not the words, "at your age," spoken like a sentence. One morning, I got up, opened my filing cabinet, and called Mr. Sullivan, a trusted lawyer I'd met through a friend at the community center. He had a reputation for being discreet, methodical, and formidable. I went to his office with a neat pile of documents. The deed of donation. The usufruct contract. The specific clause mentioning the use prohibited without my agreement. And a USB drive containing all of Courtney's videos and posts, clearly showing their permanent installation and their intention to monetize the house. Mr. Sullivan read everything carefully, line by line, without interrupting me. Then he looked up at me, his glasses sliding slightly down his nose. "Ms. Lawson, you were incredibly foresight. What they did is a clear violation of the clause. We have everything we need to initiate a immediate revocation of usufruct. Prepare for this to make some noise. But legally, you're in a strong position." 3 days later, he sent a registered letter with acknowledgement of receipt, written in clear but firm language. The letter stated, "Due to the permanent commercial and residential use established without the written consent of the bare owner, in accordance with Clause 4.b of the donation contract, the said donation is now considered null and void. The occupants have 7 calendar days to vacate the premises and return the property to its original condition." The letter was sent to David's second home and to their notary's office. It was unassailable. The next day, David called me. For the first time in weeks. His voice no longer had the neutral tone of text messages. He was beside himself. "You want to evict us? Mom, you can't do that. Courtney decorated the whole house. We're having a retreat next month." I took a deep breath, then calmly replied. "Read the documents again, David. Read them carefully. And remember, your mother was a schoolteacher for 40 years. I learned to read, to write, and to predict betrayals." He remained silent. For a few seconds, I thought I heard a stifled sob. Perhaps it was anger. Or a fragment of shame. But he said nothing more. "You'll regret it," he finally whispered. I didn't answer. Because I knew, with every fiber of my being, that the only regret in this story wasn't mine. A week later, they left the house. Quietly. Without ceremony. Without excuse. According to neighbors, a moving truck arrived one morning, well before dawn. They loaded silently, avoiding attention, like thieves leaving a home they should never have called their own. But I didn't go back there right away. I knew the house needed silence. Not the silence of emptiness, but the silence of rest. The kind of silence you give to a wounded old friend, so she can gently catch her breath. I wanted her to cleanse herself of their presence, to rediscover the smell of old wood, the whisper of the wind in the curtains, the familiar creaking of the steps that saw my children grow up. So I let her breathe. For 3 weeks, I kept my distance. I occasionally checked Google Earth, like an old sentry, checking that she was still there. But I didn't cross the road that led to the lake. During this time, David didn't speak to me again. Not a call. Not a letter. Nothing. Courtney blocked me everywhere, Facebook, Instagram, even WhatsApp. As if I were an enemy, an obstacle to their dream of a perfect life. I didn't cry. There are silences that hurt more than 1,000 insults, but there are also silences that liberate. And then one day, I received a message from Emily. A simple text, but one that fell into my heart like a warm blanket on tired shoulders. Mom, you did the right thing. Dad would have been proud of you. And so am I. I started to cry. Not from pain this time. But from relief. For having stood firm. For having said no when it would have been easier to bow down. For having chosen to be true to myself. When I finally returned to Greenwillow, it was an autumn morning. The sky was pale, the golden light caressing the russet leaves that were falling by the hundreds, as if nature itself wanted to erase all traces of the past. I pushed the door open slowly. The air smelled of dry wood, quiet dust, and memory. I opened the windows. I went around each room. And there, in perfect silence, I sat down on the old bench on the terrace. That's when the idea came to me. This place had seen so much, contained so much, absorbed so much. It couldn't remain static. It had to continue to live, but differently. Not for commercial wellness retreats. Not for social gatherings or Instagram videos. No. For women like me. Women who had given selflessly. Who had been betrayed, forgotten, pushed aside. Women full of stories, scars, silences. Women who are no longer listened to, but who still have so much to say. Today, Greenwillow House has become a writing center for retired women. We come here to spend weekends or entire weeks. We write our memories, our secrets, our wounds, and our rebirths. We read aloud under the pines. We drink tea from old flowery cups, each with its own story. We laugh, we cry sometimes. We hold hands. And above all, we repair ourselves. The oak tree under which William lies is still there. I surrounded it with white stones. And sometimes women come and sit there, in silence, as if before a wise man. When someone asks me, "Why did you take over this house? Why not let it go, along with the rest?" I smile, gently. And I answer. Because I put my life into it. Every beam, every step, every ray of light bears my name and the names of those I've loved. And because no one, not even my son, has the right to take it away from me. And there, in their eyes, I see that they understand. Because many of us have been dispossessed. But there are just as many of us who have reclaimed what belonged to us.